What's going on, everybody? Mortem here, this time bringing you a look at, I believe it's Lunacid, but it occurred to me as I went to make this video, I have never heard anybody say this out loud in any way, shape, or form, and I have no idea how to pronounce that. But ultimately, Lunacid Tears of the Moon, which saw its release just a couple days ago back on April 12th. And if I were to describe this game quickly, it would basically be as a novelty. You see, it is technically a prequel to its 2023 release of the base name, that is Lunacid, with the sort of catch to this being that the original game itself was a sort of spiritual successor to the old FromSoft game Kingsfield, with Tears of the Moon here specifically actually being made in the original engine that was used for Kingsfield, while again acting as a prequel explaining some events that lead up to it. And seeing how I had been interested in the original game for quite some time, I've just been pretty bad about making actual time for it, I figured I'd go ahead and check this out as a prequel, but that comes with a few caveats. For the most part, I would genuinely describe this as mostly a novelty, but it is also just free, so you don't have to pay for it or anything. You can just head over to Steam and pick it up, which helps cut through some of the problems you're bound to encounter, because while this is a Steam release, it's probably worth a mention that the mouse and keyboard controls for this are simply unplayable. This is a game made using an engine from the 90s, and it's pretty obvious that controller is what they had in mind here, and as a result of that, between the clunkiness of the engine itself and all of that combined, means that I had to whip out the actual controller, and even there the controls are extremely dated, as you would imagine. So that's something to know. Even if you do want to jump into this, expect to have to deal with that. It's also made on an engine whose default resolution is like 640 by 480, so it has modern resolutions, but you have to go in and change that manually, and even then the little beginning cutscene plays at that lower resolution anyways. So, just be advised if you want to check that out. Otherwise, though, Tears of the Moon puts us in the role of one Calamus Cerulean, who is doing his best to stave off visions of a future he has been having about a sort of apocalyptic event. We find ourselves in the kingdom of Lyria, needing to, as a result of these visions, track down a bunch of items in order to put a great one back to sleep. All in all, this is like maybe a 5 to 7 hour experience, depending on you, the player, and how much you're going to have to deal with the individual parts of this that are going to be a little rough for you. Now, gameplay-wise, perhaps unsurprisingly then, it is pretty much Kingsfield, and primarily a dungeon crawler, with the Kingdom of Lyria acting as your sort of home base where you'll have access to some vendors to gear up on some stuff before heading out into a few different dungeon levels where you're going to fight enemies, gear up, and just generally track down the items you need as you make your way towards your ultimate goal here. Along the way, I think you'll discover some levels with some pretty great atmosphere, a few things to discover, how the magic system works, the way you can interact with the environment in various ways, typically pretty old school ways as you'd imagine, but also just sort of puzzling out what things are for, because the game, as you would expect from anything with FromSoft, does essentially nothing to actually explain anything, which means a lot of stuff you simply have to puzzle out for yourself or potentially even look up. Now, along the way there is actually some progression, but it's fairly basic. As you defeat enemies and everything, you will actually level up, which increases your stats, your health, your magic, etc. You'll also find equipment and things to put on. Some of this is pretty basic, just standard armor that raises your defense and makes you take less damage from enemies, whereas other parts of it are a little more specific. Various weapon types or even different types of magic you can pick up, which then gives you access to certain attacks. You can even find more support-oriented items and health and magic aimed at, say, just healing yourself up. But if you can make it back to the sort of hub area, you'll get auto-healed up anyway. And the fact that enemies are incredibly slow and easy to just walk around most of the time makes for a game that is ultimately pretty easy. But it does have a solid enough sense of exploration and discovery for a game of this size, but can certainly feel clunky as you figure out, what you can use just straight away from the game's basic keybinds or stuff you actually have to go into the menu to do, like, say, using an item, which includes environmental stuff like using keys on doors. You gotta walk up to the door, then go into your inventory, use the key from there, and then still activate the thing. So again, some clunky gameplay issues that you would definitely expect from an engine this old. There are still a couple things to know about combat though, despite, enemies being super slow, and that is that it's a little on the slow and deliberate side because both your melee attack and your magic attack has a sort of individual stamina bar, irrespective of what else you're doing. And the fuller that bar is when you make that associated attack, in theory, the more damage you'll deal. And while it is possible to just keep spamming it, at least your melee attack anyway, you'll do more damage if you sort of just back off, let it charge up, and then hit the enemy. Now, magic seems to work a little differently, at least in my experience, which is that unless that bar was full, I couldn't use a spell at all, probably to keep you from spamming them. But enemies actually also work in a similar way, and what's more, if you attack super fast, while you won't deal a lot of damage, you can potentially sort of stun lock enemies, as their little sort of hit animation won't be finished by the time you're just hitting them again. So, again, just a few simple things to know about combat. And yet, in spite of those things, or perhaps maybe even because of them, I would say the overall atmosphere and the vibe of it, and even some of the gameplay, if you've played older games like these, really seems to come together for a satisfying little experience if you are into retro things like that. But I think that's probably as good a place as any to wrap this up. I just kind of wanted to give this game a bit of a highlight, given the simple fact that it's free and anybody can pick it up as a result of that, but also because I think it's just cool as a little novelty. And while I don't really expect people to jump in and play this, I just thought it was neat and wanted to talk about it. And honestly, it kind of gave me a little reminder that I still have yet to go out and check the actual regular release that released back in 2023, which is on my list of things to do, and I will eventually get around to it. But for now, I think that's pretty much going to do it. I hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, by all means, let me know what you think about this one down in the comment section below, which of course means to like, comment, subscribe, all that YouTube jazz. But regardless of any of that, truly, just thank you so much for watching. I really do appreciate it. May you wander in wisdom and have an amazing day.